Hey everyone, and welcome to the show. My guest today is David Muntner. So David and I met about 4 years ago or so. I believe we were connected through some people that I was associated with through a high-level, high-ticket mastermind type program that I was in. And David was introduced to me as a copywriter. He was a copywriter that was behind the scenes for a company that builds influencer type websites. So websites that are really story driven, that are around, individuals that are creating massive impact in the world. And, we had a really great kind of connection when we first met. And, he kind of awkwardly pitched me on like, hey, you want me to help you write your about page? And I was like, yeah, I kind of do want you to do that. And I say that kind of jokingly because at that time I was like not really fully leaning into my story and not knowing how to, as a humble, Canadian growing up in the middle of Canada on the prairies and just, not being somebody that ever wanted to or thought that I was worthy enough. I shouldn't say wanted to. There was naturally lots of parts of me that wanted to be somebody of influence and somebody that can create impact in the world. But just, constantly had this story in my head of like, well, how impactful or how can I tie in my experience as a hockey player with my ability to be a leader in my business and my life right now? And I could just never pull the pieces together. And a lot of it was, self-worth, right? It had nothing to do with actual like the structure of copywriting in the marketing world. But long story short is that David has a gift. He is an artist. He's a creative. He is somebody that's, has evolved over time himself. And we got into that in this discussion here. He went from being a personal trainer because he mentioned on the interview that he was just kind of addicted to working out. And then people were asking him like, why are you working out so much? And then eventually he's like, well, maybe if I just create a business around working out, then I won't feel so weird anymore. He's a visionary, right? And I really relate to him that way. And the conversation that we had here today was really kind of all over the place. I'm not going to lie, but it was perfect for exactly who David is and exactly for what the intention of this interview was, which was to have a discussion around what does it mean to have a vision and how do you actually extract that? How do you create that vision and then integrate it into your life and then have it be the thing that drives you, the thing that actually drives everything that you do, all your business decisions, all of the people that you attract into your world and every piece in between. And I've recently hired David again, along with Danielle Grant, who for many of you that are watching and listening to this, you'll know that Danielle and I have collaborated on a handful of things in the last couple of years. And most recently, we've been, really trying to figure out, and when I say figure out, I'm like, we're getting crystal clear on this, on what we can create and put out into the world that ultimately would provide the right type of person with the spiritual leveling up, that third to fifth dimension element that they're missing where, I even still say that out loud right now. And I'm like, I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I'm so obsessively curious to figure out what it means to be higher vibe and to actually, really truly embrace the idea that everything is energy, including money. And create a space for that, to bring other people into it and have Danielle truly be the guide that she is. And for me to be the master student and the coach. And I realized like I'm rambling even right now talking through about all of this, but this is what David's skill is that he's a really great listener. He's able to hear what I'm saying and extract it in a way that allows us to pull all these pieces together and create something truly beautiful. And I can't wait to release this into the world. And David's a huge inspiration for that. So anybody that is listening to this that has understood anything that I've said so far, you're going to love this interview. And anybody that's heard this intro so far and thought like, what the hell is he talking about? He's all over the place. You might not be ready for this. That's just the honest truth. But if you're obsessively curious, listen to it, because the things that you'll hear maybe won't land now, but subconsciously you'll remember them. And when you are ready, you'll come back to this and you'll realize how brilliant of a conversation this actually was and a catalyst for what you will create in the future. So let's go ahead and give it a listen. All right, David Muntner, welcome to the TT show, the Trevor Turnbull show. We were just kind of joking around about that before we went live here.
I always love a good TT show, and here we are.
There you go. I gotta say, and that actually is a good kind of like introduction to the discussion and why I want to introduce you to everybody in my network through this platform is that you definitely have a way of thinking and a way with words that is unique compared to anybody else that I've ever met, quite honestly. And
Aw, thanks.
yeah, it's a gift. And it's honestly something, though, that the more that I've dove into really understanding how to create a vision and a mission and really dive into your core values, and then how do you package all that stuff up so that it resonates with people and you can create offers around it and blah, 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 all the other pieces, it really is an art, right? And in order to do it, you need to be an artist at heart. And naturally, you are that as well as a musician, as the founder of Renaissance Messaging, as a visionary consultant. And I'm just excited, man, to have a chat with you. And I know you were saying you were looking forward to this one today, too.
Oh yeah, it'll be great to dive deep with you, and it's fun time sometimes to remember how much of an odd duck you are. And I don't really mean that with me, but just in general for you as well, and most likely for most people on this podcast. Um, and then it's basically just kind of like comparing and contrasting your life to other individuals, and then it's like there's lessons for me to learn, and I'm like, oh wow, and then ideally that those lessons it's like you can share with other people. um
Yeah.
and hopefully we have at least one holy fuck aha epiphany moment for the both of us within this conversation, because why not? That's positive, right?
Absolutely. And it seems like we do every single time we chat, even though we can definitely go down rabbit holes and maybe find 15 other things that are like, yeah, that didn't really land, but it sounded kind of cool, like the TT show. But,
That's I think that may be the epiphany right here.
all right. Well, it was good to see you, buddy. Thanks for
Yeah,
coming on
see,
the
all
show.
right, I'll be back in a few months. Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll do a follow up. Don't worry about it. I'll go market test and see how that one lands in the market first. But yeah, so to bring us back though, so the intention of creating this show, and it kind of alludes to what you were saying, which is like I am the odd duck, call it the black sheep of the family, even from the world that I came from too, in the sense that like I really have only in the last handful of years really embraced kind of the title of like being the visionary in a company as opposed to the integrator, and realizing the difference between those two things, and then not feeling guilty over the fact that I am that. And I think the best way to really wrap it up for most people that might be listening is like when we put labels on people that say, oh, that person's got ADD, like it's just ADHD, right? It's like we sometimes have this stigma of like that's a bad thing. But the truth is that no, that person's probably just really super creative and they see the world in a way and they react to certain things in a way that just is different than the norm. And that's how I feel now. But it took a while to actually embrace that, right? For a long time, I was trying to just fit in with my peers, fit in with my community, fit in with what I thought I was supposed to be. And you helped crack that nut for me, I'll be honest, a handful of years ago when we sat down and we worked on my about page for my website, because it was literally like reverse engineering my story where I could get out of the way and stop judging all of the things that I thought like, oh, I can't say that. Oh, is that really an example of leadership? Like I was just playing hockey. Like, is it really a leadership thing, But you have a really incredible knack of being able to hear somebody's story and not apply any kind of labels to it, but just allow a conversation to flow so that, outspits the other end, something that a person can truly align with, right? And feel good about and move forward with. So obviously, what I want to do with you here is to go like, dude, how did you get that headspace to be able to do that kind of thing? Because you don't just wake up one day and all of a sudden say, I am a conscious creator and a visionary consultant, and I created this product called the Conversion Clarity Compass, the C3. Like it evolved over time, right? And I'm looking forward to you sharing your journey to get here. So if you want to maybe just pick up from that, and you can go as far back as you want, Matt, as far as like what brought you into, music, what led you into doing copy, all of that kind of stuff. I'll let you take it from there.
Wow. Well, thank you for that introduction. And lots of different thoughts are now percolating, and this is super fun. So the first thing, if I were to give a context to all of this, is thinking about in nature. where they say the healthiest ecosystem exists, like where there's the greatest biodiversity. And anytime I use facts like this or try to incorporate science, please do not fact check me, because I don't know. There's probably holes here, but conceptually this works. So the idea is that, like, the healthiest ecosystem is one generally around a body of water where there's multiple, like, universes. There's like the sea creatures and sea life, and then there's like either swamp or sand or the beaches, or there's like forests. And so the areas where there's the most biodiversity tend to be where nature's healthiest. And I just came from like Hawaii, and it's almost like you can see, like, there's like a jungle and forest and all these things, and you see it's just like, wow, this is the most vibrant, healthiest place, where there's many different elements and animals existing and thriving. And so I'm sharing that because my life is a fucking mess. That could be viewed as a swamp, or it
Yeah.
could be viewed as like a Hawaiian paradise, depending on who
beautiful
you
mess.
ask and time of day. And so, like, what I'm kind of, recounting and reflecting on is the different lives I've lived, right?
Mm.
And by no means am I unique in having multiple lives. And some, if you're listening to this, it's like fun to kind of reflect on the different lives you've led and how they can kind of, if they come together, if you actually leverage that information, it can be very, very powerful. But if you keep it spread out and separated, then you can go crazy. So,
Yeah.
like, what I've finally found in my life is I'm at a point where it's like different separate islands of life are now merging together to create a beautiful volcano. um,
Yeah. To use the Hawaii reference. There you
yeah,
go.
well, I've actually been commissioned to write a song about Kauai, and so that concept is kind of in my mind.
Nice.
So, I could go all the way back, but just as far as, one life path, right, was I was a personal trainer. I started as a personal trainer as far as like the first line of work I ever did. Why?
Hmm.
Because I wanted to be strong and I was like working out a lot. And then people were asking me, like, Dave, why are you working out so much? This is as a high schooler. And,
Yeah.
I don't know, I was insecure about being like, oh, I want to look good. And so I needed an excuse to work out, to be like a weird obsessive compulsive about working out. And so then I was like, I'll be a personal trainer, because then I have a reason to work out so much, which is whatever. In my brain at the time, it seemed to make sense. Anyway, so I was a personal trainer for many years. And while being a personal trainer on this path, different individuals were opening up to me in different ways. Like, people kind of sharing some of their most personal life experiences. Like, one guy's like, listen, I have erectile dysfunction and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's great. Why are you telling me that? But great. Let's do two more reps. And then, like, another woman, like, took the relationship stuff. And I realized, like, listening is certainly a skill set. And, there's almost a requirement for you to be a curious person. Like, Trevor, you're a very curious person. If anybody's even listening to this, then it's because you're a curious person, right? So that's kind of
Yep.
a piece of it. And so that curiosity just fell in line with personal training. And I was working with people a lot. And I actually had a fantasy of getting into personal development and coaching, right? I
Yeah.
always
I
shared
thought
that,
I
like,
thought that was gonna go off the rails for a second there. You're talking about erectile dysfunction. Now
oh
you're
yeah,
talking
and
about
then that's
fantasies. I'm
when,
like, dude, where are
yeah,
you going with this?
yeah, yeah. That's where we're talking about this
Yep.
ecosystem with all these different pieces. So, like, I've also shared that personal development is really the gateway drug for entrepreneurship, because it's
Yeah.
kind of like the deeper you go in yourself, the more you're like, oh, I create my universe, and then it becomes, well, what's the universe I'm going to create financially, right? And then there's that independence, and you move in that direction. So,
Yep.
while diving into personal development and being this personal trainer, I was curious more and more about the coaching, right? And it was like, what's my realm of coaching? And then I ended up creating this thing called Clarity Consultant, where I was like, okay, I'm helping people find clarity, because I'm finding when I've been working out with people, my favorite part of that was the conversation and less the physical working out together. Uh, and what's funny is I had a coach at the time who was a business coach, worked with over 1,000 people, and he was like, David, you've created this concept of clarity consultant. That's fantastic, and I want you to know you're the least clear client I've ever had. And
Yeah.
but he's like, but that's great, because you're basically like this lovely mop that may be a little dirty and there may be flies on it, but it's like you can mop any floor, right? And you can pick up all the crap and it's because you're so curious and interested in clarity for yourself, and you basically have a never-ending desire for clarity because you yourself will never be clear fully,
Yeah.
you're really helpful to others in that clearing process. So was it like, and I work with over 100 people like in this realm, and it's been great. And so you're kind of almost asking me from the very beginning, like, oh, when it comes to unearthing your story, like where does that, where did that you land with that? And a lot of it has to do with listening to people. I mean, I probably have like a year's worth of just me shutting the fuck up and listening,
Yeah.
of practice, right? The mastery of not talking and just holding space for another person. That would, I'd say, is like the foundation for how to move forward with this. Anyway, 2 years ago, I shifted from clarity consultant to visionary consultant based on a
Yeah.
recommendation from a friend, realizing that who are my ideal clients? They are motherfucking visionaries who
Yep.
are doing big things. And it's almost like the more complex, the bigger your life, the more helpful it is to have somebody else by your side to process the adventures. And it's nice to have somebody that has such weird experiences so that they can understand you and speak in your language. And so anyway, that's been really kind of a fun life path. So that's the life path, with the many hats of me being a visionary consultant and working kind of as this advisor to awesome people. I like when I think of advisor, I put the visor in advisor
Mm.
as a visionary consultant. Uh,
There you go. There's the wordsmithing right there. There'll be
yeah,
many more moments like that in this conversation.
I did get the domain
We just can't
wordsmith.
help ourselves.
No, no, it's fun. I got the domain wordsmithit.com alongside 100 other useless domains, and I'll never, yeah. But hopefully, if you're listening to this and you want to buy that domain, it's on sale for $100,000. Send me a private
Well,
message.
I was just going to say that is also like if you were to put a checklist together of what defines a visionary and somebody who is, I forget how you exactly said it, but basically a hot mess, like somebody that's constantly in this state of like shifting and moving and evolving and stuff. That's one of the check marks. It's like, ooh, that's a good idea. And then you wake up in the middle of the night and then you email yourself. And then the next day you go check the domain and then you get it. And before you know it, you got 100 of them. Because I'm the exact same way, man. I've got tons of domains that they're for sale as well, but I don't know if anybody's ever going to really want it unless they align with that exact same type of thought process. But like anybody that's listening that can resonate that with that will be like, yes, I am that person too. And those that don't will be like, what are these guys talking about?
Hey, Trevor, can I share a good idea, bad idea with you that just popped into my head right now?
Do it, man. We're just flowing here.
Yeah, and feel free if you want to do this because I'm not going to. A cool idea would be to just start buying people's names as domain names, just
Mm-hmm.
like every person's name, because if that name is available, eventually that person's going to exist, especially if it's a common name like
Yeah.
charleswhite.com or
Yeah.
whatever. And you just buy everyone's name. One day someone's going to be like, I need my fucking name. And they're going to, and you're like, nope, it's my domain. And then, but yeah, so like Trevor Turnbull with a 1L, if you want to do that, feel free.
Yeah. So I'll pick up that ball that you just threw my way and tell you that Danielle Grant, the person that we know that you are currently working with, me and her to be able to refine the vision for what we're creating together, is literally in the process of doing that right now. She is going and buying her name back, which has been like an 8-year process because it was registered a long time ago. The person never used it. So there's a real world example of that. And then the other one too, I can tell you, a handful of my domains that I own are my nieces and nephew names because I knew that at some point in the future they're going to want it, and I'm just going to give it to them. I won't charge you for that one, kids. Well, we'll see if you guys make it
I
really
really
big.
do
Then
want
maybe
you
we'll
to
put
be
it
that miserly uncle that's like, you're like, nope, it's going to be your wedding
up.
gift. They're
Yeah.
like, what?
Exactly. But it's funny, like it gets me thinking about that because my nephew, the oldest of the nieces and nephews, about 4 years ago, I bought him guitar lessons. So remote virtual guitar lessons with my buddy Will Ripley, who I've joked with you before. I'm like, you guys are like a clone. You kind of look the same. Will's a guitarist. You do drums, right? I think is like your primary instrument of choice.
If you want to get into that, I was doing drums for 10 years in my band, The Tins, but have started on piano and now do guitar and singing and have the solo music career as Davey Harris.
Gotcha. And I definitely do want to get into that. So, but let me wrap this. So Ethan, my nephew, I introduced him to Will, and then Will put him onto his guy who does these virtual lessons for guitar. And the kid just rips now. Like he's good, and he's got a testimonial on Will's page talking about like I started with no experience, and he's done everything remotely, and now like his dad's sending me videos of him like just tearing it up with AC/DC songs and Metallica. Like he's totally into like 80s and 90s rock. And yeah, it's funny though, right? Because yeah, someday he could be, Tommy Lee. And I will. And yeah, just so you're listening, if you do make it to that point, then yeah, you're throwing your uncle a little bit of something back, whatever it is, maybe if it's just a signed guitar or something, but don't forget where it came from.
Yeah, and if he doesn't, you have his domain name, so.
Exactly. Yeah. And I will never release it until my demands are met. But hey, real quick on another note though, too, because I don't want to lose my thought on this, is you were
Good
talking
luck.
about, yeah, we'll go down this rabbit hole too. But you were talking about like how you were a personal trainer and you were finding that people were like talking to you and you were listening to them and you were finding ways to like really figure out like what they were saying and be able to provide coaching type of advice. It reminds me of Dr. Nima. Have you ever met Dr. Nima before?
I have, yes, we're friends.
Yeah, I figured you had. But Nima, that was basically one of his moments in his journey too, was he was a chiropractor. So he went to school, he became a chiropractor. His parents were disappointed because it wasn't a real doctor, but hey, at least he was a doctor. And like, that's a whole nother piece. But he found he was like, cracking backs and cashing checks or whatever the term that he used. But people kept coming back to him and the symptoms they weren't improving, right? And then he started listening to what people were saying, and he started to realize that it was more of a mindset challenge that people were facing as opposed to a physical challenge. And he just naturally pivoted down that path of trying to figure out like, what is this? How do you combine the like physical body and the mind? And now, of course, he runs these events called the Overview Method, and it's literally his life's journey. It's his path. It's his passion. It's why he's on this planet. But it just reminded me of that, right? So you're this personal trainer that just kind of landed in it because you wanted to be doing it because then you didn't sound crazy for going to the gym so damn much.
Yep.
And now you're doing what you're doing. But
oh, the good old days before I became a sedentary internet marketer.
Well, and that's a whole other topic we can go down. But
yeah.
But yeah, it's I think anybody listening, the whole point of this is that like the crazier, the messier, the non-compliant to what everybody in society says it's supposed to be journey that you have almost like is another checkbox on the definition of like you're destined to do this. Stay the course, and keep elevating. And this is where you really come in, like your journey to get to this point, and then the skills that you have, which are sometimes really even hard to explain until you experience it, are very unique, man. Like when we first met, it was what, like 3 years ago, maybe something like that.
3-ish, 4 years ago, because 2020 kind of disappears and we don't count that, but yeah.
Yeah. And you helped extract my story out of me and just help kind of package it up, right? And that was the first evolution of kind of where you were at with all of that. And now, of course, it's way deeper. And I even said this on the call that we did yesterday with your team and Danielle, that I'm not even sure how to explain what we're doing here. We're just kind of going on this path, and it kind of has a little bit of structure. Like there's some guardrails, but at the same time, like if we don't bust through those walls, we actually don't get to where we want to get to. How do you explain what you do as a visionary consultant and to the person that when they hear you say this, they're going to go, I need some David in my life?
Well, I like that question. And there's, I guess the other piece of the puzzle here, there are multiple pieces, but another piece of the puzzle is in the company Renaissance Messaging, which is this marketing firm that I share that I'm the CCO of, which is the Chief Catalyst Officer, the CEO of, which is the Chief Empowerment Officer, and then newly added the CEO of the Chief Energy Officer, because it's like being a catalyst, adding the right energy, and empowering individuals and clients. That's really my lane of genius. And when I step outside of that, I become the CBO, which is the Chief Bottleneck Officer. and you can smell my BO everywhere. Yeah. Anyways, so like with Renaissance messaging, right? I've shared this in different ways, but I was a copywriter for many years, mentored under Yannick Silver. We created a course together called Evolved Expression, which is really awesome about authentic, transparent, and vulnerable copywriting, ATV off-roading of copywriting.
Mm,
And then was the primary writer at this company, Influence, where we wrote for all these personal brands. And so I like to
right.
just use the term 100 because it's been more than that. But I've worked with 100 business owners, and I've also worked with 100 businesses. The business owner piece is the visionary consulting lane. The business piece is the copywriting lane, right? Writing sales copy, and ultimately to create the powerful messaging, you need to understand the person really deeply. You need to understand the company really deeply. You need to understand the product. You need to understand the avatar that they're talking to and what their pains are, what their frustrations are, what their hopes and dreams are, what keeps them up at night, how old they are, all those pieces. And then only then can you create the bridge, which is, the transmission from one place to the other. And so I've had time in both of these universes. So
Yeah.
when you're asking about this process right now, which is the conversion clarity compass that we're doing with you, right?
Yep.
What is the value or how to explain it? I mean, I could speak generally, or I could speak to what we're doing with you. So I'll start with generally, but then, or maybe then dive into what we're doing with you. What do
Yeah.
you think?
No, do that. Yeah. Do the general overview and then let's talk about it for sure.
Yeah. So the overview is we're firstly getting super clear on what you actually want, right? And it's like the layers of the onion where we can see the top of it, and we're like, oh, that's what you say you want. Great. Like for this business, because you're creating an entirely new business for yourself, right? But then as you go deeper, because this is what we're doing, it's almost like I say we're stress testing your vision
Yeah.
so that we're just making, it's like the worst case scenario is we're just validating what you said right at the get-go, right? But at least then again, this is a very solid foundation to build your entire company off of, or this entire product line, whatever. So that's the worst case scenario, is it's validated. The best case scenario is you creating an entire breakthrough where you're like, oh, this is actually what I want. Like this is the long-term vision, so that the foundation we're building now can support that vision, right? Which is, each new phase, it's like stacking on. Because a lot of times what many business owners do, which is why they don't really make a lot of progress, is they have a foundation and it's pretty thin. They build something, and then they realize they want to change their mind about this, or this. It's literally like the wind blew it just a little harder, and then the whole entire operation falls down. And they're like, okay, we'll start from scratch, right? And there's the addiction to continuously building this, and this. I love the phrase of seekers are amazing. They're the coolest people ever because they're always in search mode. They're always open to any possibility. The only consequence of being a seeker is that a lot of times you actually find what you're seeking, but you're so fucking addicted to seeking that you just keep seeking anyway,
Yeah.
right? And you never actually even hold on to it as if it's the answer. And so what we're doing right now is doing this co-seeking experience to then be like, okay, what do we all agree on is actually the essence of this? And then that's what we'll build on moving forwards, right? And so that when there's some wind that blows, the whole operation does not fall over. So I know this is still kind of general, but like for this process, this clarity conversion compass, what we're looking for is twofold. One, that we know this product, and then two, we know your audience super well based on what you've shared, and then we can bridge the gap. And so the compass, right, is this is your north star for your business, right? And so what happens is that if that we do this correctly, which I believe we are, then any decision that you'll have to make around this company moving forwards, you'll be able to make it very quickly because you don't have to think about it anymore. It's like you've already done the work, which will save you time. But this is also, I mean, we're leaning in right now with this process on marketing of like, how are you going to market this, or how are you going to talk about this in a way
Yeah.
that is no, and it's like that's kind of where we're doing this process for the message. But then also, even as far as the offer and structuring and who you're talking to and whatever else, our intention is to create enough runway for you so that the plane can take off. That's the idea. I guess I'm kind of tying in what we would do with you versus other clients. Now, generally, when we work with clients for Renaissance messaging, after we create this, because we're going to ultimately give you a document that's going to be beautiful, it'll be like the analytical and spiritual assessment of this entity, which I don't know if you want to go into, currently titled the High Vibe Tribe.
Yeah,
But
it's still
afterward, oh yeah, it's still a work
progress.
in progress, a glorified work in
That's starting
progress.
to feel aligned for sure. But that's part of the process though too, right? Is like you picked up a little bit of the vibe from me and Danielle and just kind of threw something out there, and then it became a piece that we worked from. It was like a starting point almost, you know?
Yeah, and yeah, so basically, after you have this document, like with the benefit of being Trevor Turnbull is you have all of these assets and like a team or whatever else in order to potentially put together the marketing materials, right? And you've done it, you can do it in your sleep. It's amazing, right? For you, it's more about what do I want first, then I
Yeah.
can get it done. And then for other clients, then obviously we would do the done for you piece within our excellent team, as far as putting together whatever those marketing materials are, whether it's sales pages, websites, design development, all that good stuff. Because we initially started as just a few copywriters. And then what we realized is, that we added more branding specialists. And now we have the design and development wing, because most people or most clients, they don't necessarily, they're missing the messaging firstly, right? But then if you don't have the proper design or development in place, then it's still like you're running a marathon, but your legs are tied. So
Yeah.
it's almost like I'm building this out of response to the market, which is funny. It's a marketing firm that's being built based on response to the market.
But that's for your type of clientele though, it feels like there's no other way if you want it to truly align with what you were saying, which is like that end vision in mind. And he just a whole bunch of things came up for me as you were talking through that. But like going through this process with you with that, like, let's get aligned on the vision. And then naturally, like you're working with me and Danielle, and we are two completely energetic being humans in this planet. Like naturally, we don't have one brain. We don't all think the same, you know? But to respond to what you were saying though, like so many things resonate, like the addiction to building new stuff and to just constantly be iterating and looking for the next thing. I totally resonate with that. And then defaulting to it because I'm good at it. Like I'm actually good at like starting new things and redefining and that type of thing. And also knowing what I know with my past experiences, if I don't start with the end in mind, I'm going to just continuously repeat patterns because the actual execution, once I can see the vision and I have all the pieces in front of me that you're helping with right now, the execution is actually really easy, you know? But it's easy because of 15 years of stumbling my way through it. But I know that like what we're doing together and anybody that's listening to this that's like kind of resonated with what we're talking about so far, what we're doing right now is part like story extraction. It's part alignments on who you know you can best serve and what an offer might look like. But to me, what it is more than anything is how can I design a life where the business that I build around that life serves that life and it actually accelerates that life. Like it attracts and brings people into my world that like feed Trevor in 5 years. Do you know what I mean? And I think maybe somebody who's just starting out on entrepreneurship might still be like, what the F are these guys talking about? But somebody that's been through this, that's, succeeded, failed, and everything in between, I think you'll know what we're talking about here. And, you know, there's an art to it, right? There's an art to it. You've said it numerous times, as well as your team members too, about the messaging a lot of times is sometimes pain related and where we want to help people run away from that, and sometimes gain related where people want to go towards something, and you need to kind of mix both into this process, don't you? Right? It can't just all be nirvana, as we were talking about yesterday. Some of it has to be like that thing that you went through before that really sucks, right? Like you want to get away from that, come here, come on this journey with us.
Yeah. Hey, Trevor, I don't know why, but I'm feeling compelled to ask if we could even talk for a split second about the new initiative that you're embarking on within this kind of mastermind group. Like, we don't have to go in that direction, but it seems like it'd be a fun thing to talk about it in a different way. Are you
Yeah.
open to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it might lend to the next evolution of this conversation to kind of let it really land for sure.
Cool. Yeah,
Do your
because
thing, man.
well, yeah, I mean, because we've taken you through a process so far. I'd say it's like if you're thinking about it as though it's a race, and there's like different batons and you're kind of running around. Like I feel like we've gotten to 2/3 of the way through the race. And the race to the end of this race is like, oh, you know exactly what this thing is that you feel so good about that you can enter into this other part of yourself where you execute.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this before that for you, like you have the gift and curse of being a multi-potentialite or whatever, where like you can be the executioner, like you can execute all day and night and actually get results, which then makes you want to keep doing that. But that's not necessarily serving the highest version of yourself. And so like the
Yeah.
sweet spot is having a very clear vision and then allowing that executioner to come out, but it's all serving a higher purpose as opposed to just spinning your wheels in this way and that way. And so I just kind of want to talk and maybe honor you a little bit about this group that you're putting together because you're cultivating a tribe, a team, a collective of individuals who have done a lot of earthly impressive things that if they heard somebody else do those things, they wouldn't necessarily be impressed at all. It's more so just an understanding of, okay, you've been through some shit, you've come out the other end, you've created things. So it's almost individuals who understand their own power, at least
Yeah.
in one context, right? And then at the same time, there's just a feeling of loneliness or of
Yep.
distance, which you know, it's almost like you haven't necessarily, as a multi potential, you haven't actually necessarily reached your potential, and there's just like a sense of something ain't right in the world, and at the same time, you have so much good to give. Obviously, you have a gift within the entrepreneurial realm, and rising. It's not really like rising together, but it's staying above the clouds together,
Mm.
right?
Yep.
And it's been really fun to go through this, and I just to honor you and Danielle, like it's a kind of reminder and reinforcement that you're really good people, right? And that anybody is lucky to know you because you want to bring people up to this level of awareness. So I don't know. I mean, I think this group is going to be really awesome for the right individuals, and it will be very healing and nourishing. And it's very likely that anybody who's a part of it will get. It's almost like that thing they don't even realize, that buzzing in their brain that's making somebody uncomfortable. When you wake up, you don't even realize sometimes when you have tension, you wake up and you're angry, but it's just like a subtle hum. Like I would imagine that this group is going to be addressing that in a way where like, so I'm just excited for you to
Yeah.
fucking do it
I
because
know.
I can imagine after the fact of like having people's lives changed. And so this is more a matter of like for you maybe connecting to what's at stake because that's like a missing piece of the whole puzzle of like the fuel to actually the executioner to come out of like what's at stake if you don't do this, and it's at least 15 individuals who will be stuck in a place they didn't even realize they were stuck in.
Well, and you're kind of speaking to what I led you into with where you went with this is like that's part of the pain, right? Is like the unrealized potential, the thing that when you're going to sleep and in that theta brain state and you see something in the future and you're like, shit, that's not what's around me right now, but it feels so real. Like that future vision and the people you're surrounded with and the impact you're having on the world and, the love you feel with the people that are surrounded by you and stuff. It's almost like what we're creating here is that you know that thing. And again, anybody that's listening to this will go, yes, I didn't even know how to describe it, but yes, I get it because we've been saying this all along here that like Danielle's been on a journey in her, what is she, 33, 34 years old, I think, but specifically in the last like 5, 6 years on a spiritual journey and really just coming into her own, not only in educating and really leaning into that space herself, but then also being able to guide other people through it. And I have these feelings inside where I'm like, there's more. There's more. I don't know what it is. I don't even know how to put my finger on it, but I know there's more. And I know that there's a certain way that I feel when I get around certain people. And there's a curiosity that I have to explore this stuff where I know that as a high achieving, creative, curious type, I'll go down a rabbit hole and then in today's world, not know what I can trust. And then maybe sometimes not even trust what I'm thinking because of my nature of just going through so many things over the years, and having a guide like Danielle being able to lead the people that will bring into this space, into this collective, into this group, this mastermind, whatever we end up calling it, is going to be super powerful. And we've kind of been referencing the fact that like I will definitely be a part of the coaching journey and all of that because it's just in my blood. It's in my nature. I'm just good at it. I know I am. So I lean into it. But I'm also a master student, like I'm so obsessively curious about it. It's part of the drive of doing this podcast. It was part of the drive of the mastermind that we created last year that you were a part of with a handful of other very selected people, right? And you said it a few conversations ago that like, we kind of threw that together and just said like, I don't know what it's really going to be, but like, let's get together every week. And then eventually it was like, well, let's maybe try every 2 weeks. And then it was once a month. And then it was it evolved, right? Without any kind of preconceived structure, but it was perfect. It was exactly what everybody needed. And I know you said that too, right? Like there was a lot of pieces where you can't even really say exactly what it was, but it created change in your life, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because there were actually tangible changes of just like, oh, like the relationships opening up and like, I mean, what's funny is like I was at Traffic and Conversion Summit last week and hung out with Justin, who is also in that group.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh wow, like well, these wacky internet people are actually real people. And then it kind of lands in a different way and you're like, oh wow. These are like it's you can't actually put a price tag on real relationships with people you connect with who can help you in all these different ways and add this perspective. It's funny. I just was thinking because I can't. There's another person in my head that's always rhyming things. There's like a little rapper hanging out while I have conversations. Anyway, so he was talking about how you could call this outside of the high vibe tribe. There's also the introspective collective.
Ooh.
Or if you want, the perspective collective. But
perspective collective.
All right. It's always a new perspective. When you're together, or the collective perspective. But yeah, in general, it's just like the people you have in a group. That's a container, right? You are the people around you. Like it's literally why, in an ecosystem, like there's DNA that's shared and whatever else. And within the group, it seems like everyone's kind of rising together. And as we mentioned before, there's some beautifully fucked up shit happening in the world in all these different places. And your guard actually needs to be up. So when you sharing like, I don't trust this, this, or this, right? There's an element of trusting your gut that is very helpful. And so kind of being in a container where you can trust people that actually have your best interests, it's really interesting because it's really fucking rare. It's really fucking rare to be in a group where everybody has each other's best interests.
Yeah, and that's what's been coming up for me even in the last 24 hours since we did our last call was like what else? What else does this create? Like, so we get down to very granular aspects of what you're talking about there, which is like literally I just want to be in a space and be surrounded by people that get me, where I don't even have to really explain it. They just understand it. I can trust them. It's not to say that they have all the answers, but they're also going to be there to say, to be forgiving when things don't go as planned, like just good people to be around, right? But then the other part of it though, too, I'm thinking of the future, like, from an investment standpoint. So we think of money is energy, but you surround yourself with a whole group of people that are energetically at a vibe that's just naturally attracts opportunities and possibilities and by default money. Like there's going to be all kinds of business deals that will come out of this. There's going to be a future live experience in what we're creating here that will bring all these people together. And, I know we're tight for time here and we'll do another interview, but to maybe just wrap on where we're at on this is like, David Muntner needs to be a part of that. David Muntner needs to be at that event, and helping people write the song of their life. Like, I know that's another piece that we never really touched on yet, but this is the evolution that you came from personal trainer to listening to people about erectile dysfunction to now, and being a drummer and all these things that is just like, wow, all these disconnected pieces are just like magically coming together. You've created actually an experience and a program to help people with this, right? You just did a retreat recently in Hawaii around that concept.
It's fun to actually wrap up because I realize there's been some loose ends here. Because I was just kind of explaining the culmination. Like at this point right now, I've lived a life as a coach for many years. I've lived a life as a copywriter for many years, and I lived a life as a musician for many years. And at this point, currently, right, it's almost like, and Yannick Silver kind of talks about this, like evolved ecosystem. But at this point, it's like aqueducts and like channel, and like the water actually goes everywhere, right? So with music, I'm starting, have my own music career right now as Davey Harris. I'm actually cultivating my own record label in the process because that's the only way I'm going to kind of succeed in these spaces, which includes the different marketing pieces. And it's like everything I've learned there to kind of market this one brand. But then it's also even thinking of how to create the funds for this music endeavor, which becomes now I'm doing a songwriting operation, which is cool. And also a songwriting retreat for entrepreneurs, which we have a full house and it's amazing. That will be in Hawaii in November. And it's going to be super fun, and then there's the marketing entity in which I've realized, again, where my role makes sense is in a supportive role for other individuals and as kind of like a bridge for other individuals, which is awesome. And it's now working, and it's seemingly like, so it's almost like all these different pieces. And the Visionary Consulting, by the way, has helped me to be a really good, CEO in a way, because I like the listening piece, right? You really just need to listen really fucking well. And so all these pieces, I'm not there yet, nor will I ever be. But at least it's kind of become a little tornado. It used to be just wind moving in the wind. Now it's like a tornado, which, we can do some damage, but like in a good way. So with that, I need to go. But I want to come back. I want to maybe perhaps after this process is complete with you, and perhaps as you're getting some momentum in this community, like it'd be fun to kind of jump back on.
100%, man. The other piece of this journey for me on the podcast side of things is that, yes, I want to introduce people to amazing people like you, but then I want to revisit those conversations because guess what? Life changes, priorities change, shit happens, people die, businesses fail, others succeed. And it's just such an interesting concept to like continue the conversation and really listen and hear what lands for you now versus 3 months from now and 6 months from now. It's a constant evolution. So just real quick on the wrap up then, how do people find out more about you, connect with you? Where do you want to drive people to from this interview?
Yeah, well, if you want to understand more of the business layout, because I'm kind of mysterious, but the website
totally mysterious. You Google his name and you don't even find you.
renaissancemessaging.com. That's beautiful. That's the marketing company. And then if you want to listen to my music, my name is Davey Harris, and I'm on Spotify. And there's more music to come, and a new music video will be released shortly. So that's exciting.
Unbelievable, man. Always evolving. See, I didn't even know that about you, right? Imagine what we'll talk about 3 months from now.
Lots of fun. Lots of good stuff.
It's going to be incredible. All right, buddy. Well, go off to that other call because, make sure that you're only 2 minutes late as opposed to 10.
Yes, that's good.
Thanks for doing this, though, brother.
Trevor, really appreciate you. Really appreciate the TT show. It was fun. Always a great site. And we'll talk soon. Bye, guys.
It was perfect in its imperfection. Thanks, brother. Yes. We'll see you. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Trevor Turnbull Show. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please consider subscribing on my YouTube channel and on your favorite podcast platform and leave me a review. I'd love to hear from you. Now, until next time, remember, today is a beautiful day of opportunity. Trust that you're exactly where you're supposed to be right now. So be grateful, be curious, and be brave.